An army is not just a mob of soldiers running at each other mindlessly and without purpose. Behind every great military is a leader with the knowledge, experience, and foresight to map out the battlefield, to discipline, instruct their soldiers, to conquer, to endure, and to succeed, to win and to lose with grace, integrity, and honor. Every army needs its leaders, and for the Wulin, they have the Jiang Jun. Though perhaps up in years, and definitely not quite in his prime anymore, don't let that fool you for a second. Jiang Jun rushes into the battlefield with a destructive fighting style and decades of experience that he's more than ready to use up against any who would stand in his way. But who are the Jiang Juns in history? What is he based on? Well, let's talk about it. Welcome back to Heroes in History, where we take a look at all of the For Honor heroes and discuss who they are most likely based on and if they do their counterparts justice. And today, we're taking a look at Jiang Jun. Now, many who have followed my channel closely for a while will know that I already did a series of videos on the inspiration for Jiang Jun. While I'm not a major expert on Chinese medieval history, there are a few figures and moments that I do find fascinating and have studied extensively, and one of them is Guan Yu, a man I consider to be one of the greatest generals not only in China, but in world history. Now why? Well, if you want the full detailed version, I'll leave the links to the 3 videos on my Guan Yu series in the description below. Just be warned, it was a series I did early on in my YouTube career, so they aren't of high quality. Not that my current work is much better, but I digress. However, I will still give a brief history on Guan Yu here, as I am wont to do. I do hope you enjoy, and I will preface this. A few of my fans asked me why I would do a Heroes in History on Jiang Jun when I already did that 3-part series, and the reason is because, as I say in the opening for all these videos, here we look at all of For Honor's heroes. That includes JJ. So, let's dive into the history of Guan Yu. Now, many would argue that the Han Dynasty was one of China's most prosperous and successful dynasties, and there are still those who would argue that the Han Chinese are the true Chinese. However, near the end of the 1st century, the Han Dynasty began to suffer from internal corruption in the imperial court, as well as several natural calamities such as famines, floods, and droughts. More than this though, because of the famine, many farmers and landowners were suffering an agrarian crisis, which pushed them to move homes and submit themselves to wealthy landowners who could profit off of the misfortune and take advantage of these desperate laborers. This was all a sign to the people that the Han Dynasty had fallen out from under the mandate of heaven's blessing. This is an ancient Chinese belief that every dynasty in China is built upon the will of heaven, or the gods, and will be met with prosperity and peace when it's blessed. But once the dynasty has lost heaven's favor or blessing, there will be signs from heaven, such as famine, disease, wars, and corruption. And this all led to the Chinese people losing faith in the Han Dynasty and its emperor when these things started appearing. The result was a massive rebellion known as the Yellow Turban Rebellion. Now, this rebellion was too widespread and difficult to put down by just one military force, so to combat the rebellion, warlords across China were given power to deal with rebellious acts within their own districts and territories. And this helped put down the rebellion, but it also gave power to these local administrators and military warlords, making them much harder to control. Much like what happened when Japan created the shogunate by granting too much power to the military now is outshining the ruling body, and the ruling body has no means of controlling it. One warlord in particular, Dong Zhuo, took matters into his own hands by invading the imperial palace and taking the child emperor hostage. By using the child emperor as legitimization for his control, he became the emperor regent. But this didn't last long, as Dong Zhuo was a cruel, unforgiving, and self-centered tyrant and was betrayed by his own allies and killed. But with Dong Zhuo dead, that created the power vacuum needed to start up the civil war that would go down in history for China and lead to the eventual Three Kingdoms period. Much like the Warring States period of Japan, this was the Chinese Warring States period, or technically at least, the one that got really popular. Now, the warlord of most importance to us for this story is the warlord Liu Bei. Liu Bei had 2 very close friends and allies who'd sworn their loyalty to him. One of them was Guan Yu. Guan Yu had a brotherly relationship with Liu Bei and swore his very life to the man. Through countless conflicts, he would put his life on the line to see Liu Bei to victory, and Liu Bei was lucky to have him. Guan Yu was described as fiercely loyal, but also a genius of combat. He was so skilled with his favorite polearm that it was named after him, being named the Guan Dao, or Guan Sword. But Guan Yu was not a man without honor for others either. In a battle where Liu Bei was defeated by Cao Cao, another warlord, Guan Yu was captured by Cao Cao's men. But rather than be killed or imprisoned, Cao Cao was kind to Guan Yu and offered him treasures, gifts, and even a station in his military. Guan Yu accepted, but only temporarily. When Cao Cao was attacked by Guan Liang in 200 AD, he sent Guan Yu and his forces to stop him. Guan Yu found Liang in the battle and rushed him, decapitating him with a single swing of his weapon. The martial powers of Guan Yu became legendary, and Cao Cao was prepared to give Guan Yu anything he wanted. His own province, his own territory, all of it. Whatever he asked for, he would get it. But Guan Yu declined, asking that he be allowed to leave and return to Liu Bei, his master and brother-in-arms. Cao Cao was amazed at the devotion and loyalty of Guan Yu and granted his request, saying, quote, "A subject who serves his lord but doesn't forget his origins is truly a man of righteousness." He gave Guan Yu all he needed to go back and search for Liu Bei, and even though Cao Cao's men said, "Let us go after him and kill him before he joins up with Liu Bei again," Cao Cao declined, saying, "No, he is simply doing his master's request and obeying his master's whim. There is nothing wrong with that. Let him live." Unfortunately for Cao Cao, this would come at a heavy price, for once Guan Yu joined up with Liu Bei again, it would turn quite ugly for Cao Cao. After finding his master again, he would go from battle to battle, fighting for Liu Bei, and after the Battle of Red Cliffs, where Cao Cao met a decisive defeat at the hands of Liu Bei's forces and Sun Quan's forces, Guan Yu only gained more notoriety. His martial skills were becoming so known and feared by the rest of China that as his forces pushed Cao Cao back further and further, Cao Cao began to actually feel some fear. During the Battle of Fangcheng was an important fortress that, if destroyed, would give Liu Bei's forces quick access to the capital of Chu, where Cao Cao was hiding. Guan Yu cleverly used the weather, terrain, and misdirection to take out supply lines to Fangcheng. He was so successful in his battles thus far that Cao Cao actually considered relocating the capital of Chu for fear that Guan Yu would be upon him pretty soon, and he didn't want to sit in that capital waiting for him. Even Sun Quan, the third of the great warlords fighting over China, was afraid of what Guan Yu might do once Cao Cao was defeated. According to legend, he tried to make peace with Guan Yu by offering a marriage between Guan Yu's daughter, Guan Yinping, and Sun Quan's own son to create a political marriage. Guan Yu was so insulted at the idea of giving away his daughter in this manner, he not only declined, but insulted Sun Quan openly and humiliated the messenger by stating that he would never give away his daughter to the son of a coward like Sun Quan. Despite how badass this likely appeared, it did not help Guan Yu in the long run, as he now had a very pissed off Sun Quan and a very frightened Cao Cao, both willing to put aside their differences to stop Guan Yu's campaign. Yes, you heard me right. Cao Cao and Sun Quan, two of the big three warlords fighting for China, were both terrified of Guan Yu, to the point they decided to form an alliance just to stop him in his tracks. And Guan Yu had a feeling he was nearing the end of his life as well, as he confessed to his son that he'd begun to have dreams of his own imminent death. He believed his time had come to an end, and it was only a matter of time before he was defeated. Guan Yu, at that point, had achieved the height of his fame and notoriety. Known as the God of War and feared by all of his enemies, he was Liu Bei's most prized general. But all of that, as Guan Yu predicted, was about to change. Cao Cao finally achieved a victory by sending his general, Xu Huang, to stop Guan Yu. Now, when Guan Yu had served Cao Cao before, Xu Huang and Guan Yu had been good friends. He thought that perhaps, when Xu Huang finally broke through the ranks of Guan Yu's tired men, they might be able to sit down and rekindle their friendship and talk, maybe reach a compromise and an understanding, maybe some amnesty. Instead, Xu Huang told his soldiers, "Whoever brings me the head of Guan Yu will be given 1,000 jin of gold." When Guan Yu was surprised by this, he asked, "What are you doing?" And Xu Huang replied, "This is a matter of state." Guan Yu was mortified, for he knew he never would have done such a thing. Just as he had shown amnesty to Cao Cao, and Cao Cao had shown it to him, he expected the same now. But it seemed Cao Cao was now playing to win, and to do so, he had discarded the honor and fellowship he believed they'd shared. It was a harsh reality for Guan Yu, as he was forced to retreat away from the battle with his injured army. But unfortunately, this would be the last great campaign of Guan Yu. Guan Yu was forced to retreat back to Jing province, his own territory of control that Liu Bei had given him. But while he'd been away, Sun Quan had done his own dirty work to sabotage his escape. Despite his great military gifts, Guan Yu had a bit of a temper, and he also was a strict disciplinarian. Some of the generals that Guan Yu had left to guard Jing province in his absence, he learned, were behaving poorly and without integrity, to which he said he would deal with them upon his return. They feared what that meant, so when Sun Quan's forces arrived, a deal was struck with the enemy forces, and they allowed Sun Quan ease of passage into Jing province to save themselves from the wrath of Guan Yu. Sun Quan's forces captured several military families in Jing province, treating them well but still as prisoners so they couldn't leave. And when this news reached Guan Yu's forces, the soldiers became afraid for their families and deserted. Wanting to go home to be with their families. Knowing that Jing was lost to him, Guan Yu attempted to flee to another territory in Mai Cheng, only to be ambushed by Sun Quan. Guan Yu was captured, along with his son. Now at first, Sun Quan wanted to try and use Guan Yu. He was a powerful warrior and general. He would certainly be useful if turned to his side, but his advisors warned him against it, saying, quote, "A wolf shouldn't be kept as a pet, as it will harm the keeper," end quote. Remember guys, Cao Cao made a mistake in not killing Guan Yu when he left his service, and see how Cao Cao fared? Essentially, they were telling him, keep this guy alive and he'll only bring you harm in the future. So Sun Quan agreed. Sadly, but agreed. Though he felt it a waste to execute such a mighty leader, he knew how Cao Cao had nearly been defeated by Guan Yu when he let him go. And he knew that there was no way Guan Yu would ever truly betray Liu Bei in his heart. Guan Yu and his son were both executed. However, the legacy of Guan Yu endured. When his head was sent to Cao Cao as a gift from Sun Quan, Cao Cao was saddened. He buried the head with full military and ceremonial honors. To this day, he is still revered by China as a legendary figure, even deified in certain Chinese folk religions, and named a bodhisattva, a protector of the Buddha in some sects of Chinese Buddhism. There are idols and shrines dedicated to the man, he's been featured in novels, TV shows, movies, and yes, even some anime have featured this guy, or, well, girl version of him in some cases. Yeah, while we're on that note, side note, if you're gonna look up anime with this guy in it, avoid Ikitosen. All the historical figures are modern high school girls, including Guan Yu, who they named Kanu in this, as that's Guan Yu's name in Japanese. Yeah, it's just fan service with action mixed in. Feel free to skip it.
Naturally, you would be grateful to die by my hands so that you can take that glory with you to your next life.
No, don't do it!
Kanu! I have no intention of letting her be soiled with the blood of such a creature.
But if you want an actually entertaining Guan Yu movie, check out The Lost Bladesman. A lot more action, very entertaining, starring Donnie Yen, and while goofy at times, still a fun ride as far as I was concerned. It's actually really ironic. After his death, he was given the posthumous title Marquis Zhuang Mo. And Mo at the end of the name means that he did not live up to the reputation he had created for himself. And you know what? I think that's true. How could a simple general ever live up to the reputation that Guan Yu had created? He was called the God of War by many, and the man himself, legendary though he was, never quite lived up to that title. However, that doesn't mean he isn't revered today. And guys, this is only a brief history. Like I said, go watch my full 3-part series for more on this guy, but now I know what y'all are actually thinking. What does any of this have to do with Jiang Jun? Well, the appearance of Jiang Jun was heavily based on Guan Yu for one thing, but more than this, the name Jiang Jun literally means general, and the weapon he uses, the Guan Dao, was Guan Yu's weapon of choice throughout his life. And if that wasn't enough, the very creative team at Ubisoft decided to name their original Jiang Jun character, wait for it, Guan Yu. Yeah, that's not a joke. They took their own original Jiang Jun character and just named him Guan Yu. That's what they called him. Real creative, guys. But even if we go beyond that, the way he fights and speaks seems similar to a military commander or teacher. They remind me of my military commanders and teachers. His signature stance, Shifu's pose, has him stand in an upright and stiff posture, and the word Shifu literally means master or teacher. His taunts sound like demands to do better and to improve, and as said before, Guan Yu was a strict leader and disciplinarian, so him taunting or demeaning his opponents after parries or his neck grab feels very fitting.
不学无术，无能之辈，好生一动。 认真点儿。
His attacks usually have very long windups, making them predictable, but these are offset by allowing for not only the possibility of an unblockable follow-up attack, but also occasional feinting opportunities, meaning that JJ is a powerful manipulator. He boasts incredible offense, but can flip that offense to a countering defense very easily. His ability to recall stamina incredibly quickly in a tight spot means he has endurance to last, and allows him to literally toy with his opponents, forcing them to deplete stamina while he can regenerate it. He's a warrior who can turn a battle in moments, making him one of the best fighters in the game, and one of the best to rule into this Raven's way of thinking. But it only makes sense that JJ stands out the way he does. Leaders are meant to stand out. They tower above their forces as a beacon of hope and fortitude for all their allies, and a harbinger of destruction for their enemies. Armies rally to their side. The flames of war are stoked and cared for by those who know its healing and destructive potential. The smoke that rises from this hearth dance in the face of he who knows war as an art. Any leader can endure the fires of conflict, but only the great leaders will prosper in it. They will carry their names into glory long after the flames have faded to mere embers, and their names will last long beyond their deaths. This is the mettle of a master, nay, a god of war. So it was with Guan Yu, and so it is with Jiang Jun, the proud general of For Honor. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Take care.
Danger looms in your future.
We must be very cautious.
You listen to a cookie?
Never mock the cookie.
Incoming! Bruh.
A few moments later.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
One more thing!
Today ain't your day, pancakes. Two kids gone die tonight. Oh no.
See you later, stinky.
I'm too old for this shit.
Nope.
Nice hustle, tons of fun. Next time eat a salad.
Enemy team is breaking. You die as you live, morbidly obese. Old man, no respect.
on my ass.
You lost Zone A.